Hi, so we are going to talk about the component cohesion. So cohesion means, so in previous video we discussed about how component came into picture in software in development and what we are referring as a component. So again, just give a glimpse, like component is a single deployable unit in a software architecture. Okay, so component cohesion means working together. So there are multiple components in a software application which work together, right? And that's how your application formed. So so now the common problem, like common question, which class belong to which component? This question requires good software engineering principle to answer, right? In past, most of the time, this decision is entirely made made on depending upon the context that is right now. But in like current session, we are going to talk about three software principle, like three principle of component cohesion. That is REP, CCP, and CRP. So what REP stands for is the reuse and release equivalence principle. So what it says that you are making new component, right? And there are various reusable component libraries that are in picture, like Maven, Node modules. They are managing the component, right? The reusable component. So what it says that your component should be following any release process with release number and documentation, right? Uh, so that it is easy to track down. And if we are using your component, a application is using any component. So if new release come, this component owner should be alerted and notified that hey, that there is a new release. Would you want to accept it or not? And would you want to update it or not? And then you have to see how many, what is the prerequisite of what dependency, what other components you have to update. So it is this principle saying the reuse release principle is saying that your component should follow any release processes. Uh, okay. So it is near what that means classes and modules belong to cohesive that should be releasable together, right? If your component should aggregate those classes that you can release together, that makes some sense. So it is like kind of weak principle. It doesn't give everything that you need, but the next two principle we're going to solidify this cohesion principle. And the next principle is the common closure principle. So what it is saying, it is similar to the solid principle that we have seen earlier, right? The component closure principle. Yeah, so what it says gather classes into same components which change for same reason, right? At same time, and separate those classes which changes for different times and for different reason. So it is similar to which principle? I believe it is a OCP open close principle of a solid principle. So it says class should not contain multiple reason to change. It says that component should not have multiple reason to change. So on the component should change only for single reason, and it shouldn't be the case that if you want to change single component, you have to change you have to do the changes in multiple component. If you are doing that, it's a like bad architecture decision. So uh, okay. Because and the other thing also, it cannot be like 100% achievable. So you have to like take the strategy about this. You have to what I mean is you have to take decision by considering various trade of what you want. Like, and it is similarity to the single responsibility principle. Gather together those things that changes at same times and for same reason, and separate those things that changes for different reason and at different time. And now coming up to the third principle, the common reuse principle. So what it says, don't force user of a component to depend upon things that they don't need. So it is similar to the ISP principle. ISP is interface separation principle that we learned in the solid principle. So what it says, if any dependency is dependent on something, right? A is depending on B, and B contains lots of changes, more than one reason to change. Okay, and A dependency, if each time you have to change B dependency, your A will be affected, right? So if it is a if you're using some feature of the component B, and there are more feature component B exposes, so each time you redeploy B, you have to make changes in the component A. So classes are seldom reused in isolation. The CRP states that the classes belong together in the same component. So what it says, it doesn't tell which class to bring together in a component. Rather, it says it forces which class which class you should not put into the same component. So it says it depends. Like okay, it says what I have explained it again. It's same thing. So why it is so that why you want to like move the separate classes into separate component, because even if I am a dependency of certain component, if it contains more feature which I don't need, so each time they do the deployment, I have to the recompile and revalidate and redeploy. So that is we are like putting the extra effort. So therefore it tells us more about which class shouldn't be together than about the which class should be together, and says that class should not be tightly bound with each other, not in same component, right? It is saying that it is impossible to depend on some other, otherwise we will redeploying more component than necessary and wasting significant effort. So in the bottom line, it says don't depend on the things that you don't need. And the tension diagram, that is the some good theory part to discuss. So this is the REP principle, and this is the CCP principle, and this is the CRP principle. So this is the tension. They you cannot implement all three at the same time, enforce all three principles at the same time. Rather, if you like these two, REP and CCP are inclusive principle. Like they want to bring class together in a single component, right? They want to increase the size of component. Whereas the CRP, it's want to remove the class from the component, right? So it is decreasing the size of the component. So a good architecture means that they have to take the decision. Like you have to take the decision as a good architect, which principle to follow and at what time. So in initial phase, when you want to like fast development, you shouldn't be much focused upon CRP, right? CCP, like maintainable code. What CCP says, says group the same changes into same component. So you don't want that. You want faster development. So faster development is you have to like create a component that is having same responsibility in same component, and and split the and avoid releases. So generally project tend to start on the right hand side of the triangle. What is the right hand side? This is the right hand side of the triangle, where the only sacrifice is reuse. You are sacrificing the reuse principle. You are making component bringing component that should be same, and you are not focusing much on the release and version transfer. And once your project start to growing, you have to shift your focus to the left side, right, where you are maintaining the release of the component and preparing documentation. So the principle, this means the component structure of project can vary with time and the project maturity. You cannot force any principle in software development at any single point of time. It totally depends upon the context. So yeah, that's it for today. We will going to next discuss about component coupling, and let's see.